Hi. My name is Matt Parker. I am am I too loud? I feel like I'm super loud. No? This is about right? Okay. I'm a professor of the arts at the NYU Game Center. NYU Game Center. Much love? Okay, good. I'm a new media artist as well. I'm a game maker. I've made games for console, for the web, for mobile, for many different platforms. But today I'm here to speak to you about one thing and one thing only, and that is client work / freelance, that's work for hire. These all sort of refer to the same thing. And in my travels as a game designer, I have noticed that there's often an issue with work for hire. So I know Games for Change is a big venue for people who want to fund Games for Change. It's a big venue for game makers who want to make Games for Change. And there's often a problem with attitude. That's not a typo. It's not that clever, but you'll see the pun in a minute. But the idea is basically that a lot of game makers sort of want to make games like this guy. This is one of the great artists of the 20th century. Anyone recognize who this is? Probably not, because he was very reclusive. This is a famous quote from him. "I love to write, and I assure you I write regularly, but I write for myself, for my own pleasure, and I want to be left alone to do it." Any guesses now? J.D. Salinger. This is the attitude that a lot of game makers have, that they sort of want to be able to be artists, to make games on their own, and then just sort of release it on the public, direct to consumer, and not have to deal with anyone telling them what to do, what not to do as they're making games. That's not the right attitude. If you want to, that's fine if you want to make those kind of games, if that's your goal, but those are not the sort of people, if you're a funder, you should be looking to hire, and if you are a game maker, you're probably not going to be happy doing freelance work. That being said, oftentimes funders have the wrong attitude when they hire people to make Games for Change, that they see them as somebody to implement software for them, somebody to just execute on this thing, rather than a designer or an artist who's going to make something interesting and creative, which is also not the right attitude. Really, what you want is a relationship something like this. Anyone know who this guy is? I'll give you a hint. That's where that right attitude came in. This is Frank Lloyd Wright, also one of the great artists of the 20th century, and he did amazing things like this house. Anyone know what this is called? Yeah, Falling Water, the Guggenheim. And the important thing to note about this work is that they were both, and most of Frank Lloyd Wright's work, were client work. So you can make beautiful art, inspiring art, functional art, and still be an artist, but still do it as client work. So I've worked as a freelance designer for longer than I'm going to admit in front of you people, because I just got embarrassed when I came up with the number. But for the past couple of years, I've worked largely with a group called Gigantic Mechanic, with these two guys, Mattia Romeo and Greg Chafrai. Some of you guys I recognized from the sim that we ran in this very space yesterday, the Senate Immersion module. Gigantic Mechanic survives mostly on client work. And I say survives not because that is a necessary evil, as a lot of game makers see client work. It's something that we really enjoy doing. It's something that we find as a fundamental part of our practice. And so I'm going to take you through a few of the games that we've made just to sort of build up our chops. I'm not going to talk about my work a lot in this, but I'm going to sort of mention what we do to sort of, you could see how we work with clients. So this is a game we actually debuted last year here at Games for Change called Sesame Street Boxheads that we partnered with Sesame Street on, obviously. And basically the way it works is that the parents put boxes on their heads and Bluetooth headphones, and the kids get this tablet that is paired with the headphones. The parents can't see, so the only thing they can do is listen to the commands that come in through the headphones. So when you press these buttons, you get commands like take one step forward, turn right, turn left, grab the cookie. And so this seems like just a fun, silly game, but we actually worked with Sesame to focus on something called executive function, which is something that some of you may be familiar as funders with this concept. But for those of you who are not, it's basically about the idea that being able to understand systems, delayed responses, sort of how non-direct control of things is an important developmental process for younger kids. And so we made this game where you have to press a button and then you have to wait for a second for the command to get played in your parents' ears, and then they take a step forward, to sort of encourage this sort of thinking in children. And so we made this game where they control their parents. We made teams of Cookie Monster and Elmo versus Cookie, where they chase it's a really weird, like, Baroque thing with these people chasing around people with boxes on their heads being controlled by children. And we really wanted to, it's like remote control parents. And it seems like just a silly game, but we worked with the client to come up with something that fit their needs, that was something that they really wanted to encourage. This is a game that some of you played yesterday, the Senate Immersion module that is at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute up in Massachusetts. It's basically, how many people know what a LARP is? Show of hands for LARPs. Okay, pretty good. Live action role playing. So basically it's a 2 to 3 hour experience where 100 school kids, up to 100 school kids come in. They get assigned a role as a senator, and then they have to go through this process of passing a bill. They get these Nexus 7 tablets that have an app on them that sort of acts as their chief of staff, telling them about what their constituents want, what their party wants, and they have to try and figure out how to balance these different things as they go through this process of passing a law, but also balance against the other party in the other states and try and figure out what is a law that can be come up with that everyone will enjoy. This is currently running in Massachusetts, and I'm going to come back to this later. This is a game that those of you, how many people are going to the public arcade on Saturday at the Tribeca? That's not a lot of hands. Get those hands up. Yeah, let's come out on Saturday and play some games. We're not just here to learn about games. We're here to play them. This is a game called Short Order that we actually made for Disneyland. We were out there last summer. They let us ride on the rides and experience the Disney experience and see what their guests were looking for in Disney parks. And so we came up with this game that I'm not going to describe to you. I'm going to force you to come out on Saturday and come see this game, but it's a frantic game of short order cooking where you sort and place items for different recipes. I'm describing a little bit. Damn it, I said I wasn't going to. But basically, it's a fun, frantic game that really fit the needs of what the client was looking for. And as we were actually playing this at the park, a father came up to me and my partner Greg and said to us that his son was autistic, type 2 autistic. I'm not an expert on autism, so I don't exactly know what that level means. But he said that he normally has a lot of trouble following along with games, can't really follow rules, doesn't really engage with things like that, and that he was really able to engage with this game and play with his parents and really enjoyed it, and that was a really meaningful experience for him. And it was like, got a little choked up, I gotta say. That was like one of the most intense moments I've had as a game designer, was having this father tell me about how much my game connected with him and his son. And so this is really what I want to get to. If you're a game maker and you're sort of skeptical about doing work for hire, if I wanted to run a game in a theme park, I basically have two options. One of them is become super rich and build a theme park. And the other one is to do work for hire. And really what that comes down to is clients provide opportunities you would not otherwise have. I've worked on things and in places I would never be able to do if I wasn't forcing someone to pay me to do it. And this is really important. If you're a game maker, you have to look at this as an opportunity to make the sort of game that you would never be able to make otherwise. But there are issues on both sides, as I said before, that funders often have issues as well, where they see, okay, I'm gonna speed through the end of this. Sorry, it's very hard to read. They often see, as I said, people making games as sort of drones that they want to have produce this thing. It has to be a relationship of mutual respect. If you're making a game with an artist, that artist is an artist, not just someone who is a software engineer, and you need to treat them as such. If you are a game maker who's working with a client, you need to look at them as somebody who knows their domain better than you do and work with them to try and make something effective for that domain. This is just a tip for game makers. Don't overpromise things, but always over-deliver on things. Hourly budgets are just better than project budgets, guys. You're going to get more for your money. People are going to work harder for those extra hours. You're always going to end up in conflicts with project budgets where people don't want to work at the end when they think they finished, but you don't think they finished. Just go with an hourly. Everyone will be happier. This is one of the most frustrating things I have when I'm working with clients, when they give me an assignment and then they disappear until it's supposed to be due. I can't know if what I'm building, game design is an iterative process, and I can't know if what I'm building matches what you're looking for unless you're involved in that process. So I've had clients complain to me at the end of the project that it wasn't what they were looking for, but They didn't respond to my emails. They didn't show up to play tests. You have to be involved if you're going to be a funder for a Game for Change. Remember that you're working with artists. You are not going to, you don't try and impose your schedule on them. Talk to them at the beginning about what their schedule is, what their practice is, and try and see if that works for you. If it doesn't, just don't work with that artist. But don't try and change things as the process is underway. Art isn't safe and it's not a guarantee. I know that impact is something that a lot of people are interested in measuring with metrics, but sometimes you can't measure that. It's hard to say 100% of the time, Uncle Tom's Cabin wasn't meant to start the Civil War, did it? I don't know. Impossible to prove, but it certainly was a factor. Blackfish may have not hurt SeaWorld's bottom line, but it may have, and certainly made a lot more people aware of that. You shouldn't hold games to the standard that other media is not held to. If people are making art that's in support of your cause, it may be impossible to measure what that impact is. I just want to, if you consider yourself a capital A artist, this is capital A art, that was client work. Orson Welles, funny guy to say this, but he did. And then this is the Barack Obama talking about a game I worked on. Oh, but you're not going to hear it. He's saying The Sim is great. Trust me, he's saying good things about the Senate immersion module. That's unfortunate. Just look it up. He did it. This isn't just a Barack Obama quote. I'm Matt Parker. Thank you very much.